Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon, where we are going to speak a little bit about the situation that happened at the border of Mexico and the United States regarding our brothers and sisters, Haitians, migrants. And it's a pleasure to have the community support here. And we heard from a lot of speakers, and that has something to say about what happened. Before we start with the program, I will ask Dr. Nirva LaFortune, Executive Director of Hope and Change for Haiti, for the welcoming remarks.
I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. WAL 808, WAL 809, WAL 8110 are the flight numbers of 3 airplanes that landed today in Haiti from Texas, especially from the Valley International Airport, with hundreds of Haitian migrants that are deported without allowing them to apply for asylum. Yesterday again, there were 3 flights. One had 120 Haitians, the second one 112, and the third one 88. It's happened every single day since September 19. In just 10 days, more than 5,000 people have already expelled from the United States. After they were arrived at the border between Mexico and the United States, from a perilous, dangerous road trip starting in Chile or Brazil or another Southern American country, where they walked through 11 countries to reach the American border. Haitians have received inhumane treatment, the behavior of border patrol agents chasing and ripping the Haitians, including pregnant women and children, is an outrage and racist. Despite the protests and cries of so many, including you, and diverse communities calling the Biden-Harris administration to stop the deportation and give the Haitian migrants a chance to apply for asylum, they continue to expel them without a hearing. Even though you don't see any videos or pictures recently of migrants under the bridge in Del Rio, the administration, after sending back 8,000 Haitian migrants to Mexico, and they have moved 12,000 to a center where they continue with the deportation. I'm very disappointed by the way the administration decided to treat the Haitian migrants who flee persecution, poverty, and insecurity to seek asylum and protection in the US. I'm even more frustrated to see it is the administration that pretends to be immigrant rights champions that took those asylum seekers and sent them back to a country that already failed them. Many of the deportees are not even Haitians. They are kids, about 530 kids born in Brazil, in Chile, and some other Latin countries. They were also deported even though they didn't hold a Haitian passport. They make no consideration for them. The administration had constantly criticized the previous administration for applying the policy Title 42 that prevented individuals from applying for asylum during the COVID-19 pandemic time. President Biden and Vice President Harris agreed to apply this policy against the Haitian people. We gathered today here to call on Congress to act and to ask President Biden to stop the deportation, to provide better treatment, human treatment to the Haitian migrants, to allow them to apply for asylum and obtain a hearing in court. Haiti is not ready to accept those failures. After spending everything they had to flee political turmoils, hunger, kidnapping, unemployment, they cannot return to a place where there is nothing waiting for them. For the past 3 years, Haiti has experienced the most difficult time in its history, with a lockdown of the country for 3 years, by the opposition fighting the former President Jovenel Moïse administration, the COVID-19 time, the heinous assassination of the President Jovenel Moïse, a deadly and devastating earthquake that stopped Haiti on August 14, 2021, and multiple hurricanes. We truly appreciate you joining us today to ask the administration to stop the discriminations against the Haitian people, to stop the deportation, and to give them the chance to seek asylum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Germain. At this time, I would like to call Honorable General President Magazine, Treasurer.
Well, thank you, first of all, to Norley and Councilwoman Aniece Germain and everyone from Hope and Change for Haiti for your incredible service, both in Haiti and here in the state of Rhode Island. A thank you to my fellow elected officials who are here today. Mayor Alorza, thank you for your leadership. Representative Potter, Representative Ranglin Bassel. We have candidate for State Senate, Hillary Friedman, and Jim Vincent of the NAACP. Thank you all for your leadership as well. And I know we have representatives from Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse's office. It was just yards from here that this state, Rhode Island, was founded as a refuge for those fleeing religious and political persecution. A refuge for people who have no place else safe to go. That is our heritage as Rhode Island, and the reality is that even 4 centuries later, today, in our own time, there are too many people globally who are forced from where they live because it is unsafe. It is unsafe due to their religion, due to their tribe, due to political instability. And we need to continue to live up to the legacy of our forebearers for being that refuge for those who are seeking safe harbor. So in our time, Rhode Island must continue to be a place that is welcoming to everyone, particularly those who are fleeing violence. The images from the southern border are unacceptable, and everyone deserves humane treatment in our immigration system. So I want to thank, once again, Hope and Change for Haiti for bringing us together to raise awareness for what is going on, and so all of us can come together as Rhode Islanders, as Americans, and pledge to do better. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, General Treasurer Seth Magazine. This time I will call Mayor of Providence, Jorge Elosa.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. I want to thank Councilwoman Germain, thank you very much for your leadership and for bringing us together, as well as Dr. Germain, Dr. Norley, wherever you are. There we go. I appreciate you and your leadership as well. Everything that Hope and Change for Haiti is doing are things that certainly promote the values that we live by and that we govern by here in the city. I also want to recognize State Representative Raglan Bassel. Thank you. You're always on the right side of all of these issues, as well as State Rep Potter. I appreciate having you here. We have Mr. Jim Vincent. Mr. Jim Vincent is not a politician, but he politics more than any one of us. You're always there, always present. So we appreciate that, Jim. Hillary Levi Friedman. Hillary, great to have you here. Hope everything's going well with you. And I also want to recognize Shonda Womack from Rhode Island. Great to have you here, Shonda. I think I forgot to mention our state treasurer. Great to have you here, Treasurer Magazine. So, you know, our country right now is in the middle of a conversation. It's more of a debate, and frankly, it's more of an internal struggle. It's an internal struggle where we continue to debate and compare who we profess to be and who we actually are based on our actions. We profess to be a land of opportunity, a welcoming place, and the very symbol of our United States, the Statue of Liberty. It says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." Now these are the ideals that we strive to live up to. But the reality is actually borne out in these horrific, horrid, stomach-turning pictures and images coming from our southern border of how human beings are being treated like cattle and treated in inhumane ways. Not only that, but then our solution as a country is to deport them back to a country, many of whom, as Dr. Germain just mentioned, many of them have never actually seen and stepped foot in, while at the same time, the country is already having a difficult time feeding its poor, and this is only going to exacerbate their challenges going forward. So who are we as a country? It says in our very founding documents that it falls on each and every generation to do their part to form a more perfect union. And I do believe that what we're witnessing right now in our immigration policy is one of these moments, and one of these decisions is going to decide who we are as a country and who we are as a people. All I can say is that if we are what we're seeing down at the southern border, and we're absolutely a country heading in the wrong direction, we have to be better than this. And we are all here to call on our representatives in Congress and to call on the President of the United States to be better and to do better. These are human beings that deserve every single bit of consideration, to be treated with the dignity that every human being possesses. The last point that I'll mention is that while this may be happening at the southern border and dealing primarily with a country outside of our shores, make no mistake about it that this is something that's happening right here in our country right now. It's happening right here in our community and right here in our city. We have a strong Haitian American community here. Their families and their personal lives are being impacted by this. So this is not a foreign challenge. This is a challenge right here in the city of Providence. So to the entire Haitian American community that resides here in our city and in our state, and throughout the entire state, I want you all to know that we stand by you and we stand with you. And we will support you in any way that we can throughout this process to make sure that your people, your relatives, your friends, your family, that they're treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Eloza. As we continue our speaking program, I will call on Representative Marcia Wangler-Vassell for her remarks.
Thank you so much, Aniece. And I just want to ditto, and all of the elected officials that are here today, and everyone who really, elected or not, who's standing on the side of justice. I'm a poet, so before I share some other thoughts, I want to share with you a line from this poem that I'm writing. It's a very hard poem to write, and so it's taken me a while to do this. So this is actually incomplete. If being black is a sin, then I am a sinner deep within. I became a sinner the minute I popped out of mama's belly. If being black is a crime, then for God in heaven's sake, I am a criminal and I will die a criminal while clutching my blackness. I am no criminal, and neither are my Haitian brothers and sisters. Sitting, standing, kneeling under the Del Rio Bridge. They're seeking refuge. They're seeking comfort. They're seeking food, and they're seeking shelter from the storm. They're hunted by the Border Patrol agents, hell-bent on stripping them of their human dignity, their humanity. First they came with buses, then they came with planes, then they came on horsebacks, and with whips, rounding up black bodies like they did 401 years ago. Yes, now evil is riding on horses, stripping and whipping docile black Haitians of their ability to live, to survive, to be. I stand here this moment not as an elected official. I stand here this moment as a human being. I stand here this moment because I, as Mayor Elorza said, I will always stand on the side of justice, even if I stand alone. I am so grateful that I am not standing alone. I am not standing alone because every single person that's standing here right now, we are standing together, and we are standing united, and we are not asking, we are demanding. This is a demand from all of us who believe in human dignity, and this is our axe. I sent this axe a week ago, and I will reiterate it here. Let me try to read the axe, or summarize the axe. We're asking our congressional delegation from Rhode Island, and we're asking the Congress to move expeditiously And to one, stop deporting Haitians. There is no secret that the United States government and the immigration policy has never favored black bodies. This is just how it is. And the truth is naked. And unless we speak the truth, then we become complicit. There is no time for complicity. That's done. That's over with. I remember standing with the Haitian people on Broad Street about 4 or 5 years ago. And Jim, you were there as well. When the former president used a very derogatory term. Who remembers? Anyone? Right? I remember. And that was Trump. Guess what? The Biden-Harris administration is still following the same edict, if you will. Title 42. It is not okay. It is not okay, and it has to stop. Our brothers and sisters are simply fleeing poverty, homelessness, lack of food. And by the way, in conclusion, let me just say this. These poor people just almost survived an earthquake. They're just dead. And it was a kumbaya moment. Everyone was saying, we gotta do this. And we've got to help. Well, guess what? This is the time. I want to thank Aniece. I want to thank Dr. Norley. And let us continue to elevate this issue in the spaces that we occupy, whether it be electronic or on the phone. Take care of yourselves, because self-care is a part of this resistance. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Marcia Wangepasa. As we continue in the order of elected official, it's my pleasure to call my representative, Brendan Potter. He always there for us whenever we call him, and thank you for being here this afternoon.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'll join in thanking all of the elected officials, from Treasurer Magaziner to Mayor Loza. I see Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune has joined us. Jim Vincent and ACP, great to see you as always. And my good friend, Representative Marcia Randall-Bassel, very powerful words. It's always a pleasure and an honor when my good friend, Councilwoman Aniece Germain, and Dr. Norley Germain invite me to speak at an event like this. And it's very disheartening and heartbreaking that it has to be under just such unfortunate circumstances. But to see so many people here and so many elected officials here, again, a very sincere thank you, because it's very powerful to show that we have this basic support. I want to say that, like all of you, I was completely outraged to see the image of a Haitian refugee caught by someone on horseback at our border. It's heartbreaking, it's disgusting. But what's even more outrageous is to know that this was not a one-off event. This is something that is continuing to happen. And over the last few weeks, over 4,000 Haitian refugees have been deported to a country that most of them have never known. Many of these people have fled their country years and years ago and traveled thousands of miles, walking through Central America searching for safety and security. And to know that they've arrived on the border of the United States without even an opportunity to make their claim for asylum is unacceptable. And it's even more unacceptable to put it in the context of knowing that after 4 years of the Trump administration and everything that we experienced, this is still being done under the same framework, under the veil of public health by enacting Title 42. It's unacceptable. I will just say in closing, this is not who we can be as Americans. This is not what being an American is about, and this cannot be done in our name. Our congressional delegation must act, this administration must act. This is unacceptable, and it is not who we are as a people. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge, because of mass, a lot of people don't know who is here. And Councilwoman Jessica Vega here with us. She's in the program. Shonda Womack, she's here with us. We have Jim Vincent in the program with us that will be speaking. And we have my good friend Hilary Levitt-Swiftman. She will be leaving soon because she's in the program. She has to go get the kids, but because she always committed when it comes to support minorities, I have to tell you that. 2 years ago, it's irony. 2 years ago, Hilary and I, we were in Warwick, protesting together of the treatment of children in cage. And I would never thought today I would stand up here to protest, to condemn at the administration on the discouraged Biden-Harris administration what is happening at the border. And Hilary, it's an honor for me to have you here and to be your friends. And you always fight the good fight. And I call you right now and you have to go get the kids. And after we continue with the program. You know we have to do the work, right?
Thank you so much for all you do and for this event. And not only Councilwoman Aniece Germain, but Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune and Dr. Norley Germain for organizing this. Thank you so much. It's important to call all of our attention to the abhorrent treatment of Haitian people at our southern border. I am proud to stand with all of you, and I'm here to say that America, we can and must do better. We cannot stand by when human rights are under attack. We cannot be silent while violence is perpetrated. We cannot be neutral in the face of systemic racism. So the documented violence that's caught the nation's attention in the last week is obviously very jarring. Haitian migrants, many of whom are asylum seekers, are being subjected to a trifecta of oppressions: anti-Black racism, anti-immigrant prejudice, and a rejection of human rights. It's symptomatic of an enduring pattern of systemic racism targeting Haitian people in particular in U.S. immigration policy. I'm sure some of you know that Haitians are already denied asylum at a higher rate than almost every other nationality in the United States. So we as the United States have both a moral duty and a legal duty, an obligation to accept, protect, and treat with dignity all who seek asylum in our country. Since 1951, the Geneva Convention on Refugees has granted that seeking asylum is a basic protected human right. What we've seen at our southern borders appears to be anything but the welcoming of asylum seekers, as provided for by both international covenant and our own laws and beliefs. So I myself am deeply confused and profoundly disturbed that we're talking about this under the Biden-Harris administration. As Aniece said, it was in 2018 that we came together to protest and raise money for the Florence Project for the kids who were in cages at our border. And I just have to ask, how are we still here? So let me be clear. We must not engage in intimidation, tactics, violence, discrimination, systemic racism, and all of these things that these Border Patrol agents have demonstrated. In light of all this, the flaunting of codified protections for asylum seekers, the trampling of human rights evident in these border agents' actions, it's even more appalling that the Texas Governor Abbott would signal support for the assault on Haitian asylum seekers by promising to hire the very officers implicated. Although I'm sure we all have something to say about what's going on in Texas some way, shape, or form these days. But the scenes that have been shared with the world from our southern border are reprehensible and a blight on our already tarnished reputation as a nation that accepts refugees with open arms. I know in Rhode Island we are welcoming Afghani refugees right now. I trust that we're going to continue to open our borders and our arms here in our state to Haitian refugees and others, and I will fight and continue to fight for all people to be welcomed here. So thank you again for having me and for fighting for our Haitian friends and for all humanity. Thank you so much.
So I have to mention this evening we have a lot of people that coming to be here and they have to go. Once they're speaking, they have to go because they have a lot of work to do. I want to acknowledge the representative of Senator Jacquemin is here, representative of Senator Whitehouse is here, and I know they listen. They're gonna bring those messages to our delegation. Even though we don't have, I don't think we have representative Congressman Jim Linderman or Representative David Cicilline, but I know they will hear our message and they will bring, because they are our voice in Congress, to bring it to the Congress. So we will continue. We have a program. We have Councilwoman Jessica Vega.
Thank you, everyone. I won't run down the list of names of elected officials because you know who you are. And our activists, thank you for being here because you guys are the backbones of our community. You guys, if you're not the loudest, then people just won't listen. So I'm disgusted by the way all immigrants have been treated at the border. However, I'm not going to stand here and pretend that black people, black immigrants haven't been treated worse. As Hillary mentioned earlier, the numbers speak for themselves, and also the way that they're being deported to their country. I want to call in now all of my elected Dominican officials here in the state of Rhode Island, because there are many of us. We have a big Dominican community, and for too long we have ignored the plight of the Haitian people, even in our own country. And I'm going to call out my country, the Dominican Republic, because let us not forget that many years ago, we were also deporting and shutting Haitians in our country, even the ones who were born in the Dominican Republic. I'm also calling in our delegations, our congressmen, our senators who are up at the White House, in Congress, to make sure that they are also fighting for us. And the elected official at the local state, I challenge us to also bring in Haitian refugees to our own state. Why can't we? Let's put our money where our mouth is, making sure that everyone has an opportunity. And again, thank you so much for putting this event together. I'm committed to the plight of what's happening in Haiti, and any way I can help, please feel free to reach out. But again, to all my Dominican elected officials in the state of Rhode Island, we need to do better instead of just hope and prayer. Let's get together and work with our Haitian community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Vega. So, we have elected official, community leader. Now we still have elected official. Councilwoman LaFortune is here. You are for last, right? So I have this activity, this press conference is possible because of Hope and Change for Haiti, HAPPA-RI, another Haitian organization in the community, Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune, and your servant, Councilwoman Aniece Germain. So it's a community work that we've been doing here. So we're here to represent the Haitian community, here to raise our voice, to ask you please to support us, to help us to bring our message to Congress and the White House. This is my pleasure to call Shonda Womack. She's the founding executive director of Rise, and she's a warrior woman, and she's South Asian, right? So it's my pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Aniece. So, Aniece
sent me a message late on Sunday, I think, and she apologized. But as a lifelong organizer and activist, we don't sleep, right? So I really like to just give virtual hugs to the speakers who named structural and institutional racism. That is the root, right? To say that this country was not founded on the enslavement of Black bodies is to ignore the macro factors that contribute to the meso factors, okay? So we're here because of the inhumane treatment of Haitian brothers and sisters. Our Haitian brothers and sisters who are seeking refuge, safety, and asylum, only to be confronted by a country that further dehumanizes them, right? It is never enough for us to see these images on social media, to scroll, to be overcome with sadness, all of the feelings you all express. Yeah, that's great, but I want to ask you all, how are you utilizing your privilege and your power to then become action-oriented? That anger needs to fuel you to stand in solidarity with the most oppressed, and that has been Black bodies in this country. So to say that I'm shocked or to say that we are surprised that this happened, deportation is nothing new, people. It happened under the Obama administration. For us Southeast Asians, it's a school to prison to deportation pipeline. The images are all too familiar, especially when it comes to the historical, oppressive, and enslavement treatment of Black bodies. My identity as a Cambodian refugee, wife to a Black man, mom of 2 biracial children who are Black presenting, coming from my ancestral country and my family's history with war, genocide, and persecution is one of the reasons why I'm here. Over 45 years ago, there were 1.3 million Southeast Asians who landed in the United States because we were seeking refuge from war and genocide. And by the way, the destabilization of our country, we were secretly bombed, okay? America committed a war crime. You will never learn about that in history, okay? That's why I'm here. I'm reminded that it was our Black and brown brothers and sisters who advocated for America to open our doors to Southeast Asians. The 1.3 million resettlement effort was the largest resettlement effort in the history of the United States. We have to do our work through a Black liberation lens. I'm not here to save Haitians. I'm here because my liberation and my people's liberation is tied to Black liberation. That's why I'm here. If we are the country we say that we are, we have to manifest that. It's about time that America lives up to the values that it espouses every single day. We must stand in solidarity with our Haitian brothers and sisters. And part of standing in solidarity is following their leadership. Thank you.
Now, it's my pleasure to call our one unconditional advocate for human rights, because what happened in the border is a violation of human rights. There is no doubt about it. Jim Vincent, President of NWCP.
Merci. Councilwoman Aniece and Dr. Nirva Germain, Hope and Change for Haiti, thank you for gathering us here at a very important time in our nation's history. Thank you to your elected officials and your community activists that are here, because without any of you, we would never get anywhere. So thank you for your steadfast loyalty to institutional racism, the fighting of it. and that's why I'm here. I'm the president of the NAACP Providence branch, and I am proud that my president, Derek Johnson, immediately called for a meeting of President Biden to deal with the disgusting situation that had happened at the border with horsemen whipping people, women and children and men, like it was 200 years ago in this country. You know, we thought that this was over, where people on horseback would be whipping black people, but I guess 2021, it can happen. And here's the problem. The United States, we say we are the largest democracy in the world. I mean, China and Russia, they don't claim to be democracies, but we do. So we cannot be hypocritical when we say we have policies on asylum, but yet the practice is that it's asylum for non-black people only. All right? You cannot have that kind of contradiction where practices deviate from the policy in such a striking way, where people on the news, pundits say, don't believe your lying eyes, what's going on at the border. You didn't see what you just saw. Oh no, we saw what we just saw. And to make it worse, some of the pundits said those people on horseback were amongst the finest people that Homeland Security has in their employ. Give me a break. You gotta be kidding me. This is what's being said every night on the news in this country, the United States, home of the brave and the free, home of the democracy that we all say is supposed to be the greatest democracy on the face of the earth. Like I said, China and Russia, they don't claim to be democracies. Okay, they don't claim to be something that they're not. And if we're not a democracy, let's just say we're not. Okay, let's tell the truth about who we are. Let's tell the truth about racism, systemic racism, white supremacy. Let's at least be honest about it. Let's own up to it. We don't have to pretend anymore. The whole world is watching. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has internet. Say who you are so that we won't be confused when we say that we are proud of America, the democracy. All right, we cannot continue down this path. You know, diversity is something that's going to stay here in this country from here on in. We're growing, and we cannot complain about growing pains. We have to do something about it. All right, so that's why I'm here, and that's why the NAACP is proud to work with the Haitian community. Jean-Gilles, friend Jean-Gilles, my friend who I've worked with for 20 years in Rhode Island, in the Haitian community. So I am proud to stand with you, Councilwoman Aniece Germain and Dr. Nirva LaFortune and Hope and Change in Haiti. And I thank God that we will all be able to solve this hideous problem called racism in America.
So now it's my pleasure to call my sister, the first Haitian American elected official in Rhode Island, Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune, and now you know, candidate for mayor of Providence, Nirva.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. And thank you everyone who is here today, all the elected officials, Hope and Change for Haiti, Councilwoman Aniece Germain, Dr. Nirva Germain, HAPPA, and everyone who's just here standing in solidarity with us Haitians. Thank you for your powerful words, Marcia Ranglin-Bassel. You always bring to light, in such a beautiful way, the oppression that Black people and the hate that Black people have experienced in this nation and throughout the world. And thank you, Shonda, for your powerful words in talking about the refugee experience, how just across the board, the trauma that people bring with them to the borders when they're seeking asylum. So thank you, all of you. And Councilwoman, thank you for calling in. Thank you. It's really important because we live in a society too where Haitians have been ostracized, and there's all these stereotypes about Haitians. And the reality is, there are many countries in America, there are many countries in the world who have benefited from Haitians funding their own liberation, from Haitians fighting for their liberations right here in the United States, for Haitians opening their doors to refugees seeking asylum when America closed theirs. So Haitians have made some significant contributions. So, and thank you. Thank you, Red, for always being a partner. Thank you. So what's happening right now is nothing new. I don't know if people remember the 1980 Refugee Act, which actually stopped Haitians seeking asylum in the 1980s at sea. One of my favorite authors is Edwidge Danticat, and she wrote the book, Brother, I Am Dying, which illustrates the inequities, the injustice, the systemic oppression and racism within the immigration system. In that book, she talks about her uncle who's held in an ICE detention and how he dies. He doesn't have access to his medication. He comes to the United States seeking asylum. And it's a combination of stories of many Haitians who came by boat, who made it to the borders, but weren't given the same treatment as Cuban refugees, amongst others. And so this issue is something that has been happening for quite some time, and it needs to stop. Haitians deserve the same asylum-seeking process as every other refugee who land on the border or walk to the border. What's so devastating about this whole situation, one, is the images that brings us way back. And two, the stories. The stories. There is a young man and his wife, his young wife. They traveled from Chile. They spoke Spanish, fluent. And many Haitians do speak Spanish, like my identity. My family is Haitian, but we're also Afro-Latinas. My grandmother was Cuban. My grandfather had family in Dominican Republic. He would travel every weekend with my grandmother to visit his family. So there are many Haitians where there are many intersectionalities within their own identity. But going back to this gentleman, he traveled with his baby and his wife by foot and bus, mostly by foot, to the border, to Del Rio, Texas, by foot with a baby. He left Haiti years ago, and he talked about he had a job. He left everything because he also wanted to escape racism that he was experiencing there. And to be treated in such deplorable conditions, worse than animals. Someone will go to jail if you hurt an animal. If someone witnesses you hitting an animal in the street, a dog, you will go to jail. And yet we're watching humans treating other humans worse than animals. It's deplorable. And then we're using a policy to prevent the spread of COVID, yet you're dropping people off who have not been vaccinated, possibly, to a country where they were one of the last, and they still don't have enough vaccinations for the Haitian people after they're trying to recover from yet another natural disaster and political unrest. How just is that? Not only is human right, but it's common sense. It's common sense. You know, I've been thinking about all of this because that could have easily been me. I was undocumented. Because of poor immigration policies, my parents had to leave me behind during the fall of a dictatorship. My grandfather, the one I spoke about who would, travel to the Dominican Republic, he was murdered. And I remember as a kid, when we stood in front of City Hall demanding for the United States to send Aristide back to Haiti. Now I'm here demanding for the United States to protect asylum seekers. Now at the State House. I'm tired. I am tired. I am so tired and frustrated by this. Haitians come to this country. They work their tail off. My father is 73 years old, and he's a CNA. He takes care of our elderly. His clients are white. He washes them. He cleans them if they have an accident. He goes to the grocery store. He picks up their medicine. He takes care of elderly Americans right here in the United States. And yet, and there's so many nations who do that, who also educate our children, our doctors, our elected officials, have organizations that serve our community. And this is how you're treating them. We shouldn't have to stand here and tell our leaders to create a policy that will treat people with dignity and respect. This is shameful. Not only do we need to address this, but we also need to create immigration fair and equitable and just immigration policies that apply to every single immigrants, refugee, migrants, asylum seekers. You can't treat one group differently from another. So what I'm asking is that our congressional or our federal delegates to speak up, but also take action. Because I saw some of the tweets and, words, but take action. And for the Biden administration to not come to Haitians for our vote, but to actually work to protect Haitians who fought in the Revolutionary War to ensure that America gained their own independence. So I thank all of you for being here, but write letters, mobilize your community, and continue to push for better, more equitable immigration policies that apply to all people. And what we can do now is stop deporting Haitians. You're literally sending people into far worse conditions because people are getting there, they have nowhere to go. So now you're like even more destabilizing the country. That is literally, what's the word I'm looking for?
Insane.
What'd you say?
Insane.
What'd you say?
Insane.
It's insane, but just, they're bursting at the seams and just like, they don't have the resources. They just don't. So you're sending people to die, basically. It's unjust, it's horrific. And so continue to advocate, write letters, call people in, call our federal delegates, and write letters to the president, but this has to stop. This has been going on for so long, and I'm tired. I am very tired. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune. This will conclude our press conference. One thing I would like to add, I am also a member of National Haitian American Elected Official Networks, NHAN. We have an ask for the administration. So we ask the administration to live up to its promise to build back better an immigration system where people are not discriminated based on their skin color. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for supporting us, and we continue the fight. We shall overcome.